Dow Jones rose 530 points. Basically, that's inside trading. Cannabis market. Well, we haven't tested it yet on ourselves.
Trial users of this vaccine.
Protein shakes.
That you might be consuming maggots.
I have never heard such a word.
The long bank holiday weekend in the UK and the US saw the closure of stock markets for 3 whole days. But what happened when they reopened? And are we beginning to see glimpses of recovery as we edge closer to the COVID-19 vaccine? I spoke to our expert Ainars Velicevskis to find out his views and analysis.
Good morning, Ainars. I hope you're well and you had a lovely weekend.
Good morning, Simona. Yeah, I had a really lovely weekend. Went to the seaside, had tremendous walks, found a couple of interesting places. I hope they will be open soon in summer.
That sounds great. And I think that the bank holiday weekend seems to have been positive for stock markets as well.
Actually, yes. Dow Jones rose 530 points. There was a surge on Tuesday as investors resumed trading after a 3-day holiday weekend. Actually, there was a quite positive sentiment over the reopening economy and the vaccine developments. One of the most important things for the stock market was also New York Stock Exchange finally reopened its floor after shutting down 2 months ago. Of course, traders were asked to observe physical distancing precautions.
Wow, that's amazing. So, and what has that done for markets? The fact that the stock exchange, because obviously it's such a big part of the finance industry, the New York Stock Exchange.
Yes, actually, yes. One of the whales again was Pharmaceutical's race. Last week, after our conversation, we experienced a cool down from the initial hype on the pharma companies, with most rolling back to up to 10% to more stable levels. But then there are some exceptions that happened through the weekend, basically on yesterday's trading session. Moderna lost 16.36%. On the news that their executives sold $29 million worth of stock after its early vaccine announcements. Basically, that's inside trading. But then again, after the small roll down last week, Novavax again posted positive numbers of going up 4.5% after announcing that it had enrolled the first participants for the phase 1 on the clinical trials. Well, additionally, Novavax was the reason why Moderna fell so much, because it's a big race for the first to launch the COVID vaccine on the market. Also, sorry for interrupting you.
No, sorry for interrupting.
Also, one of the biggest hypes through the weekend was cannabis market. It grew on the positive news that Canadian sales grew 19% in March for the recreational cannabis. So far, the best performers in the first quarter were Aphria with 53% sales growth, then Aurora and Tilray with sales going up in the mid-20s. Aurora grew from $6.5 just 2 weeks ago to $15.6 yesterday. And it has a still potential to go up to 25-27% dollar price range. Canopy, Aphria, all had surges, the same comparable with Aurora. Well, not that much, but also substantial, about $4-5 for Canopy, Aphria 4.5%, OrganiGram 4.3%. And by the way, there are some experts who are saying that cannabis is a great treatment for COVID. But, well, we haven't tested it yet on ourselves.
Well, I hope not, Ainars. But the question is, have you been enlisted by Novavax to be one of their trial users of this vaccine?
Well, I can't disclose such facts.
Hopefully not. I mean, if we see you going off sick anytime soon, then we might be a bit worried.
You won't be seeing me.
And have there been any other trends in the market as a result? Obviously, we're seeing stock markets kind of the volatility change on a weekly basis. What's happening in the financial industry, for example? Are there any stocks that we should be looking at?
Quite a broad list of things to speak on. First of all, the banks. As of last week, Bloomberg's 18 company S&P Bank Index was down more than 30% since the beginning of the year. However, the index soared 9% on Tuesday as well. Investors were looking back on the last couple of weeks when the stocks became too cheap compared with other parts of the market. And remember what I said last week. Saudi Arabia had picked up a $500 million investment in Bank of America and another $500 million in Citigroup. Also, the actions of Fed and Congress, well, at least helped the U.S. clear the low bar of avoiding the worst case scenario, as the numbers for the unemployment are still terrible, but the economy is starting to pick up a little bit, so there will not be that hard crash that we experienced 12 years ago. Also, an interesting fact, Facebook had hit a new all-time high with a market cap over 660 billion. By contrast, 7 financials that combine the total market capitalization of 851 billion. Well, in other words, Facebook is getting close to the entire banking industry combined.
That's really interesting. So then maybe if you're a less risk-averse, if you're a risk-averse investor, you'd be maybe looking more to Facebook than buying the banks because they're more volatile.
Facebook has experienced increase in usage rate. Also, they have a strong possibility to add additional 12 to 13% till the end of the year. So this is quite an interesting thing. Of course, banks can give you a better return, but it's also a riskier thing, and you have to do a more detailed investigation on which stock exactly you need to put in your portfolio. Also, there was a big surprise what we had from the air industry. Airline stocks soared as much as 16% on Tuesday. You may have been surprised that Warren Buffett decided to sell airline stocks that, well, had already crashed, and now they're regaining some ground. One of the most interesting numbers are the United Airlines, which soared 16.3%. Of course, it's down from the beginning of the year of 66%, but it has surged a little bit, and it still has an upside of about 20-25%. Also, strong numbers were from the Southwestern Airlines, who used to look also quite strong in there, 12.6%, and they have an upside additional 20%. And Delta Airlines, they surged 13%, even though they are a shareholder of 20% of LATAM Airlines, the South America's biggest air carrier, which sought U.S. bankruptcy protection yesterday. Even considering that, they soared up 13%, and they still have the biggest upside of the whole industry of even 30%. Additionally, for those who like to gamble, there's a distressed company, Carnival Cruiselines. One of the interesting things with them is they have their books filled fully for the year 2021. And it's quite an interesting gamble. If everything goes well and the restrictions are eased, there is a vaccine, the investors will see quite big returns. Even if you don't want to risk much, you can just put on 5% of that stock in your portfolio and just see what you can win. You can lose 2 to 5%, but you can win a lot more.
That's great. And you also mentioned, obviously, travel is something that we've spoken about, but we've also talked a lot about consumer trends in terms of diet and takeaways and, the way people are consuming goods. Has anything changed in the market? I know in the US that, they've got a shortage of meat, but what's happening across the globe?
Actually, yeah, regarding the trends, many restaurants are suffering really hard. For example, the world's best restaurant from Copenhagen, Noma, has reopened as a cheeseburger joint. Really, their chef Rene Redzepi chose this business model, how not to lose their clients. If you normally had to book a table months prior to get there, at least now there are no reservations needed. If you want the burger, you can go and get it. And the prices are also acceptable too. A burger starts from $18 for a takeaway. By the way, a similar experiment in Mexico found walk-in queues starting from 4 a.m. in the morning for sittings 14 hours later for the best places. Also, what you mentioned for the meat industry, last year EU already saw meat consumption decrease. And this year, it will be even lower. While the US shortages were mainly because of the shuttered slaughterhouses, then there was a surplus in Europe because people are more concerned about their health and environment. So now the closed restaurants, closed festivals, and empty soccer stadiums have just obliterated out-of-home eating, and the European Union's pork demand will fall at least 0.6% to a 7-year low. Beef and chicken is also the lowest in several years. So this is quite an interesting what's happening there. I also forgot to mention I'm starting a health kick at the moment and starting to drink protein shakes.
Oh, what's that, Ainars? Is that, I mean, what are you trying to achieve with that?
First of all, I'm trying to stay healthy. As the first 2 months of the, sitting at home and having all the gyms closed was not doing a fair enough thing to me. I was gaining a couple of pounds. So now the weather outside is getting warmer. I'm starting cycling and need to fuel myself with some good building material. And by the way, have you heard of such a thing that what's called as insectarianism? Yeah. Insecterianism, yeah. Insecterianism is the new trend of future food industry.
I mean nymphology, right?
I have never heard such a word. Insectarianism sounds much better.
Oh, okay. I agree with you. It's less of a tongue tie, I think.
Basically, what I'm meaning is people can use insects for food. And there's the South African startup, Susanto, that is planning to use maggots as fuel as for sports drinks. The startup aims to produce high-quality protein powder from maggots to use in food products and sports drinks across the year, all over the globe. And they want to start producing that by the end of this year. Well, by doing so, actually, it will be becoming the first company in Africa who will be providing protein for human consumption derived from the insects. And actually, for the whole green movement for lessening the waste and living more sustainable life on this earth, it's quite a good thing, because the harvest, the flies are fed on waste, therefore reducing the need for the landfills and helping to slow the climate change, because less methane going out from that. And the powder doesn't have a smell or taste, so you can use it for sweet foods as chocolate, for example. And 1 hectare of the insect farm can produce 7,500 times more than a soy farm the same size.
That's really interesting. So we could be eating maggot chocolate. I mean, that's going to be an interesting one. But I don't know if I'm more worried about you lowering your meat consumption or the fact that you might be consuming maggots. But we'll see. I guess it's good. It's good for the planet. It's good for the environment. And it seems that maybe whilst COVID has been good for Noma and for people that want to be tasting their food and maybe getting a reservation, because like you said, reservations are so hard to get. If meat consumption is going down in Europe, then their cheeseburgers might not be as popular in the future. Maybe they're going to have to look at maggot burgers.
Well, for sustainable life on Earth, we need to find sustainable food sources. This is one of the best food sources that can be used. Of course, we will consume meat, but in much smaller amounts, as we just don't need such big amounts of meat, and it's not that healthy to be on a carnivorous diet.
Sure. Well, I guess, like you said, the trends are changing, and maybe we should all get onto your health kick. And it looks like we might have to go fishing then for some maggots.
By the way, I'm going fishing on this weekend, and until Susento succeeds, I'm using maggots only as a bait for fish.
Thank goodness for that. I mean, I know that normal protein shakes are probably quite high in sugar, but I think for the time being, I think you should stick to the ones that you know.
True.
That's great to hear. Well, thank you so much. Those are some really interesting trends, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about how this maggot protein trend develops, as well as obviously hearing more about Novavax next week, because it is it's your favorite, I know. So yeah, let's see how it goes. Maybe in the meantime, you can go and taste one of those burgers and let us know next week how it tastes.
Agreed. I'll get back to you with updates on our previous topics and share with you how lovely that burger was.
Oh yeah, don't make me too jealous, but yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much, Ainars. It's been lovely talking to you as usual, and I look forward to catching up again next week.
All right, take care and have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you for watching. It appears that there are lots of possibilities and opportunities in markets this week. However, I won't be trying any maggot-based protein drinks anytime soon. Well, not at least until Ainars has tried them and made sure that they're safe. Tune in next week for more market updates.